whakariki ko te whakariki. Tukua mai kia piri, tukua mai kia tata. Kia eke mai ki runga ki te paipai poto, ahau mai tawhiti. Tēnā koutou, nau mai, hara mai, ki tēnei kaupapa o tātou. He tuatahitanga tēnei, this is a first for us here in Te Arawa, a first for us here at Te Arawa Lakes Trust, to be able to elevate and uplift our stories and talk to those who are able to share their learnings with us with regards to their journey in whatever space or whatever life you're kind of in. So, tēnā koe, e te rangatira ko tau mai ki tēnei taumata me au. Ko Henny Brown tōku ingoa, uri ahau no roto mai a Ngāti Rangi Wewehi, Ngāti Whakauwe, Tūhaurangi, Ngāti Wāheo, Ngāti Tarāwhau. He maha no atu ngā iwi. Engari, ko te mea nui, Te Arawa waka, Te Arawa tangata, which is why I've brought you here. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself there, e hoa?
Yeah, kia ora, ko Koan mokonui ārangi te pōkea Hemana ahau. Hiri tēnei ngō Te Arawa whānui, more specifically Ngāti Henerangi, Ngāti Pārua, Ngāti Whakauwe. And then on my mother's side, I've got a bit of Apanui and Tūrangi Tukua, but we'll leave that for another day. So yeah, just a bit about me. So I am of Karawa Pōkea Hemana's eldest male line.
Ure tārewa,
yeah,
that.
Yeah, and as I understand it, he was one of the earliest members of the Te Arawa Lakes Trust.
That's an OG.
Yeah.
Original member, founding member.
Yeah, it's a bit of a relevance for you there. Yeah, and so his eldest son is Charles, Rauriti Pōkea Hemana, and then his eldest son is Charles Hemana, and then his eldest son is my father Clint, and then yeah, I'm his eldest son, so that's me.
That's not just you, because the reason why we've got you here today is obviously because you're a descendant of our trust here, and our trust is coming into their 100 years of its establishment. So I think 1924 was when the Te Arawa Trust Board was established. Now it's been 100 years since then. We've transitioned into the PSGE, they call it, or the Post-Treaty Settlement Entity that's called Te Arawa Lakes Trust. Now, that's all technical and stuff, but we've got you here because you're an amazing person. How old are you now?
18.
You're 18. You're on your way to Harvard University. Now, can you explain to us the journey that it's taken for you to get to this point in your life?
Yeah, I guess it's hard to pinpoint my finger on exactly where that started. And the more I think about it today, I guess the more I realize it started way before my birth. My parents are two hardworking people who decided that university was for them. They believe that education was the key to sort of unlocking your truest expression of yourself and a tool in which you can use to better help your people. So I guess it started with them, but then it started with who created them and their influence of their ngākau, so it goes back so very, very far. And which is why I hold Karawa Pōkea as one of my biggest inspirations for me, because as I understand, he was the last sort of paramount chief of Te Arawa, and
that takes a lot of responsibility.
Yeah.
Your Karawa would have been in this role. He's not just thinking about himself as an individual, but the whole tribe. Our more than 62 marae, I think it is, or more than, I can't even remember how many hapu we have here in Te Arawa, but it's around that same number. Yeah. So when you're tallying it up, how do you think your karawa would have systemised, I know they didn't even think that's a word, but made sense and made himself so that when he was in a leadership role like that, be able to make decisions based on his understanding of where everyone sat within here in Arohe o Te Arawa?
Yeah, I guess, and it's the same principle that has applied for my family now, and it's in a more modern sense now, and that's, again, just education. I think in order to be a leader, you have to be quite quite switched on. You can't afford to make rash decisions. You have to be quite stoic in the sense that you're taking into account people's, not only their feelings, but you're influencing their outcomes. And to hold on to that leadership and to make good decisions is a very hard thing to do. So I think for him, just educating himself and exposing himself to all sorts of walks of life, it's an interesting time for when he was in leadership, a time where Pākehā relations were sort of something of the day. And so the transition of his iwi from that time till now is quite, looking back, it's quite a fragile moment for Te Arawa. And considering where we're from geographically, it's been a paradise for a long time, and many people, it's our natural resources is something that's of tremendous value. So not only is he holding on to the 62 odd hapu or marae, but he's holding on to all the resources as well. And so it's a very difficult job, and I hope he wouldn't have done it alone. And like any other great leader, support networks are key. So I understand he would have educated himself to the best of his ability, and he wouldn't have been alone.
I want to talk about a little bit around, we live amongst Wairiki, Maunga, Awa. We've got Kaura, which separates us, and Kākahi, that kind of separates us from other iwi. And these are things that are said in all of our stories. I think there's a saying that goes, ngā kākahi whakairoiro, o rotorua o te roto iti rānei, which is basically that we are like the kākahi in the lake, and the kākahi are a reflection of us. And that's so when I want to talk to you about connection, you're 18, but you come from a legacy. You have a legacy and a connection to your tupuna, but you also are connected here to the whenua and the taiao. How do you maintain, one, who you are, but also the mahi that you do, and then still connect back?
Yeah, I think that was probably one of the bigger challenges of my life. Taking into account school and extracurriculars and what have you, with trying to get into university and do well in school. That's all well and good, but in order to make that a sustainable process, in which I need to achieve in order, for my goals are to help my people in the end, to become a doctor, surgeon, and have more Māori going into that field. So I have to be connected to that, and I can't, in my process of reaching that goal into the Pākehā world, to lose that sense of identity, it would completely extinguish the whole meaning of my being. And so the past few years now, I've made it really a integral part of my life, whether that's through kapaka, just fun things that I enjoy.
So you're saying that
in school,
doing all the study that you've done till like midnight every night, is it fun?
No. I mean, I try and make it fun, at least, because it's good for me, as like I say. But so in school I was in all the science classes, and I think in my second year I joined the whare at Rotorua Boys High, which is like multi-performing arts class, and I got into kapaka and all sorts of things, and I didn't know how good it was going to be for me. It changed my life completely, because for the first time it felt like the scales were a bit balanced, and it satisfied a part of myself that I didn't know was there. It's like I was doing my thing in class, and feeling good about my grades or whatever, but just not feeling totally fulfilled.
What is that feeling? Can you explain that a little bit more? Like, is it a feeling of loneliness, or?
Yeah, it was a feeling of, I guess, a metaphor could be like swimming with no direction, it felt like I was doing things for the sake of it. With no intrinsic meaning, it becomes really hard to hold on to, and I was questioning whether or not it's actually something I wanted to do. But yeah, so that's part of me that was lacking, and I guess it relates to the Te Whare Tapawhā model. It was my taha hinengaro that was just not fully in touch, and so it wasn't a nice feeling, but to connect to that, and now I've joined a senior kapa group, Ngā Te Rangi Wewehi, that just further motivates me and the people I interact with as how I hold on to my identity. And
I think for those that are listening, one of the purposes of this particular podcast is to share our learnings on how to maintain our identity, a sense of connection, and let everybody know that this is a way of doing that, whether it would be through kapahaka, whether it be through te reo, whether it be through going to learn or going to your marae and reconnecting back. So hearing these kōrero is such a privilege, tēnā koe I wēnei kōrero, because it's not an easy thing to share. So obviously remedying that feeling that you had, what else did you have to do? And what when you joined the kapahaka rōpū, the whare, and now the senior kapahaka, and by the way, congratulations on your recent stand at Te Matatini. Coming 4th place is an amazing feat with Ngāti Rangi Wewehi. So how did that make you feel? Does it give you a sense of pride, or?
Yeah, well, 100%. I felt closer to, I felt closer to my tupuna for the first time in my life. And it's a hugely uplifting feeling. And, at least for where my head stands, I can only make it so far being sort of extrinsically motivated by things. I need to feel good about it and within myself. Otherwise, I die off. And it's sort of a hard thing to explain. But it's like as if you were looking for something. You didn't know exactly what it was, and then it just hit you in the face, and it's finally there, and it's a great feeling. And so even when people are a bit tired for practice, I love going to practices and staying at Tarimano and doing the marae stays and stuff, because it felt largely satiating. Yeah.
For those who are listening, can you explain to them the process of the kapahaka journey you've just had? And then marry that up with because you're in a totally different world when it comes to your studying to become a doctor.
Yeah, well, it's a different. They're two different aisles. Don't share as many commonalities with everyone else in the kapa, in the sense that I was late to the party, and I guess my transition was pretty quick. My parents are good friends of Uncle Hohua, and so I think I just messaged them asking if I could tag along to one practice, and I did. And from that moment on, I loved it. I wasn't too sure whether or not I wanted to join a senior group. It was actually my tutors from my high school team, Bokura, that suggested that I join. I think it was Michael Riri here trying to get me into Rangi.
I bet he was.
But Wewehi was the place for me, just down the road from my whare. And so my mum was like, "You're going there if you're going anywhere." So it was pretty fast. I met a bunch of new people really quickly, and I'd like to say that we're good friends now. And marrying that up with what was the other part? Sorry.
Oh, and I just sort of for me, looking at you and you're in a real Māori world over here in the kapahaka system, and then on the other hand, you're studying sciences. They're worlds away from here, but how do you merge those two sort of systems together?
It's not easy, but I've sort of done that all my life. in primary school, I was always a sporty kid and a bit of a book kid, and that's something my parents have to get through me, at least they've made me do all sorts of things throughout school, whether it's debating, speeches, and then obviously classroom stuff. Like my mum strongly suggested, like I did matarua.
Did you do matarua?
Yeah, I was.
You explain to everybody what that is. That's a whole nother level of te whare tūtau.
Yeah, so I did that. I think finished it when I was 8. I was the last graduating class, actually.
When you were 8 years old.
Yeah, something like that. And yeah, so that's with
so we know who to come and get when we need a whittle.
Then it's like, yeah, no. But yeah, it's like Māori martial arts and learning Maurako and stuff like that, which I loved. And it meant I could spin a taiaha by the time I was at high school, which I think was a bit weird because I didn't really join the haka scene until my later years. Like I think only my last year I was in Raukura. And I was glad I went there, and that's all my mum and my parents' influence. So I've sort of always balanced both sides, but now every year it just goes to another level, which is what feeds me. I can't stay on the same. Yeah.
Obviously, within these podcasts, we're wanting to kind of see the why and feel those sort of things that push you or motivate you to push yourself to be the best version, or why is it that you strive for excellence in the things that you're doing, and how do you explain that to our whānau and our iwi, our hapu, and those who are listening? How do you explain that to them? What is your why, and why do you do the things that you do?
Well, interesting thing that when you apply to a US college, you have to give a personal statement essay of 500 words or so, and it's sort of like a why. And so my one was about a pounamu that was given to me by my kororodoti at birth. So yeah, when I was born in the hospital, my name was just Koan blank Hemana. I didn't have any middle names at the moment, and I think my mum said kororodoti just walked in, did his karakia or whatever, and then started giving me the names Mokonui Arangi Te Poke, and she was like, hey, and Dad was like, no, just let it happen. And he gave me those names and a pounamu, and that's what I wrote my personal statement about. And I think that encapsulates my why. And not fully knowing exactly who Kuraua Pōkea was until a couple of years ago. I think that was a really good decision on my father's front, just for whatever reason. Because
sometimes those who are given names or can sometimes take on that huge responsibility.
Yeah.
And then also have to carry, or people feel they have to carry, the legacy that their karawa, or trying to reach the standard of life that their namesake had done. So I guess where I'm heading with this next question is around who in Te Arawa, or who of one of your tupuna, obviously Pōkehā is one, but if there was another one, how did their pūrākau or their story help guide you in your life to, one, maintain your identity as Te Arawa, but also push you to do the mahi that you're doing?
Yeah, I think, growing up as a kid, there's always a few people in your family who you see as total, living gods that could do no wrong, and are just pure good. And for me, that was kororodoti. So he was around for the first few years of my life. I think he passed away when I was 7 years old. And I'd like to say I was his favourite moko, but whatever. But probably wasn't. I spent a lot of time with him because I think my dad understood he wouldn't be around for so long. And so, yeah, always taking visits to his house. And he inspired me just by his work ethic. Many people in my family sort of worked until their last days. And I guess, again, the pounamu he gave me that I still have is this tiny little heitiki. That sort of it's
leaves an impression.
Yeah, it I guess many could see it as a burden, but I see it as a huge honor and privilege. And it's like at least my dad's made me understand not many people get the opportunity to work towards that legacy. So it's taken me a while to realize, but I'm not afraid of any legacy or fulfilling that, because it's there. I have the opportunity in the first place. And it's the same thing. I can see myself, complaining about classes at Harvard or whatever, but it's a privilege to get to do the work anyway, and that I'm there. So and then I think my dad as well. He's probably the smartest man I know. He's always right, whether I like it or not. He's a pretty strict man. Strong family man, good values. Him and my mother met when they were in high school.
Oh.
And so they've been together for...
How old are you?
8. They've been together for over 20 years, married 20 years, I think.
Good.
So they're just a shining example of what the goal is. And on my mother's side, she's actually related to Wahine Rangiamo here, who was a chieftainess of Te Wharetoa. And my koro used to joke that they're like meeting together in the line, because she's a part of the eldest female line. He's part of the eldest male line. And those two are living examples for me. I'm just trying to do my best to take their teachings into these next years, where I'm going to be... Well, I will be sort of alone in the physical sense, but never really alone,
Obviously, your whānau and support play a huge part in who you are and where you're headed. And the last question I want to ask you is around, where do you see Te Arawa, or where are Te Arawa today, and where do you see Te Arawa in the next 100 years?
Yeah, well, where they are today, I guess, well, we're a very staunch iwi, and I think that's a good thing, but it also means that we can do a lot more work in terms of progressing into a more modern world, and I think holding on to that same ngākau my parents have given me, education is the key to everything. And I think if we can be the examples for iwi in terms of branching out into, because the Pākehā world does hold a lot of richness for us to obtain and use to better ourselves. It's foolish to think that, or it's a sort of arrogance to think that you can stay in one world now, where every place is so nationalized and integrated with many races. So I think an important next step is to understand and respect that, and it can only uplift Māori's place in Aotearoa and in Te Arawa if we take on those challenges, I think. But I don't know.
And what are your aspirations for your iwi, for yourself first and foremost, and then for your iwi of Te Arawa?
Yeah, so, well, it's interesting. It's always been to bring up myself so that I can help my iwi. And when people ask me what my plans are after I get my doctorate, it's always to come back here, because that's the purpose. Sort of my whole big spiel is on Māori health, getting more Māori surgeons for one. I think there's only like 10 odd Māori surgeons in all of Aotearoa, which is not good at all. The distrust between the Western medicine and Māori natural medicine and our ways of life is it's a huge barrier, and statistically you see how that the repercussions of that. And that's what I mean when having a better relationship with te ao Pākehā. So yeah, my goals are to hopefully inspire more Māori to want to take up medicine and sort of strive for not bigger heights, because everyone has their niche, but to always be a community driven person, because that's the reason why we've held on to our land for so long now. It's the reason why we have the privileges to live by our land, and we can't afford to lose that,
Hey, tēnā koe wenei kororo katoa. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you so much for sharing your understanding of yourself, your whānau, your hapu, and our iwi o te Arawa.
No,
Nā reira,
thank
tēnā
you.
koe kamatu. Tēnā rā tātou katoa. Thank you.